Commander Vexthal pressed his 4 hands against the viewing window. His dark eyes watched the chamber below where technicians moved like insects around the massive metal sphere. The sphere gleamed under bright lights, its surface perfectly smooth and silver. This was Celestium 9, the strongest metal ever created in the known galaxy. The viewing gallery buzzed with conversation. Military commanders from 17 different species had traveled here to witness this test. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of crystal. They all wanted to see if anything could break Celestium 9. For 20 years, nothing had even scratched it. Vexthal belonged to the Chromath Empire. His people were warriors with thick armor plates covering their bodies. They conquered worlds and took prisoners. Today, one of those prisoners would be placed inside the Celestium 9 sphere. Then they would try to crush her. "Bring in the human," Vexthal said into his communicator. The chamber doors opened. 2 guards walked in, and between them was a human female. She wore gray prison clothes that hung loose on her thin frame. Her dark hair was pulled back from her face. Her hands were bound in front of her, but she walked with her head up. Her name was Sarah Chen. Sarah had been a cargo ship captain before the Chromath Empire caught her. She had transported food and supplies between human colonies. Then she saw what the Chromath were doing to the mining colonies. They took people from their homes. They forced them to work until they died. They separated children from their parents. Sarah could not look away. She began to help people escape. Over 2 years, she freed 3 entire colonies. Thousands of people reached safety because of her. Then the Chromath found her. They sentenced her to death. But the Chromath wanted to make her death useful. They wanted to test their weapons and materials. So they brought her here, to the Convergence Arena, a massive station at the edge of known space. The technicians opened the Celestium 9 sphere. It split into 2 perfect halves. Inside was empty space, just big enough for a person. Sarah looked at it for a long moment. Then she climbed inside without saying a word. The sphere closed around her with a deep sound. Magnetic locks engaged. Sarah Chen was now sealed inside the strongest metal in the galaxy. "Begin the test," Vexthal ordered. In the command center, operators touched their controls. Machines around the sphere hummed to life. The first test was pressure. They would squeeze the sphere from all sides like crushing an egg in your fist. The pressure gauge began to climb. 10,000 atmospheres, 20,000, 50,000. The commanders watched their instruments. Inside the sphere, Sarah would be feeling the pressure on her body now. The air would be getting harder to breathe. 100,000 atmospheres. This much pressure existed at the bottom of the deepest oceans on most worlds. The human body should have been crushed already. "Increase pressure," Vexthal said. The gauge climbed higher. 500,000 atmospheres. 1,000,000. The other commanders looked at each other with surprise. No life form they knew could survive this. "She must be dead by now," one of them said. "Let us move to the next test." The next test was heat. They directed energy beams at the sphere. The temperature rose, 1,000 degrees, 5,000 degrees, hot enough to melt most metals. The sphere glowed red, then white. For 1 hour, they cooked the sphere. Then they switched to cold. They dropped the temperature to nearly absolute zero, where all movement stops at the atomic level. They froze it for another hour. Then came the gravitational test. They created artificial gravity fields that pulled in different directions. They tried to tear the sphere apart. The forces were strong enough to rip a starship in half. 3 hours passed. 3 hours of crushing pressure, burning heat, freezing cold, and tearing gravity. The Celestium 9 sphere showed no damage. Its surface remained perfect. "Enough," Vexthal finally said. "The human is dead. The test proves Celestium 9 is—" An alarm shrieked through the chamber. Every head turned to look at the sphere. On its perfect silver surface, a thin black line appeared. It was a crack, just a hairline, barely visible. "That's impossible," Someone whispered. The crack grew. It spread across the sphere's surface like lightning. More cracks appeared. They raced around the metal, intersecting and branching. "Shut down all systems!" a technician shouted. But it was too late. With a sound that was felt more than heard, the Celestium 9 sphere shattered. Pieces of the strongest metal in the galaxy flew in all directions. They bounced off the chamber walls and floor. The viewing gallery went silent. Every eye stared at the chamber below. In the center of the debris field, Sarah Chen stood. She was alive. Her prison clothes were mostly burned away. Blood ran from cuts on her arms and legs. Her skin was red and blistered from the heat. She breathed in short, painful gasps, but she was standing. Her eyes were open. Slowly, Sarah raised her head. She looked up at the viewing gallery. Her gaze found Vexthal through the transparent shielding. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Vexthal felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. "What is she made of?" he whispered. The question echoed in the mind of every commander in the gallery. They had just watched a human survive forces that shattered Celestium 9. The strongest metal they knew had broken. The fragile human had not. This was impossible. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They had no armor. Their bones broke easily. They lived short lives and died from simple diseases. They were classified as Class 7 durability, one of the weakest species in the galaxy. Yet Sarah Chen stood in a pile of broken Celestium 9, breathing. Medical teams rushed into the chamber. They surrounded Sarah with equipment and instruments. She collapsed then, falling to her knees among the metal fragments. But she had stood. She had survived. In the viewing gallery, commanders began talking at once. Their voices rose in confusion and fear. Some demanded answers. Others wanted the human killed immediately. A few suggested they needed to study her to understand how this was possible. Vexthal watched as the medical teams carried Sarah away on a floating stretcher. His mind raced. If one human could break Celestium 9, what could 1 billion humans do? What kind of threat did they pose? He touched his communicator. "Contact the Galactic Council. Tell them we have a problem. Tell them the humans are not what we thought they were." Below in the chamber, fragments of Celestium 9 lay scattered across the floor. The metal that had never been broken was now in pieces. And somewhere in the medical wing, a human woman's heart continued to beat. The question remained, hanging in the air like smoke. What is she made of? Chief xenobiologist Darwin floated in his water-filled suit as he studied the human woman. His amphibious body moved with grace inside the transparent container that kept him wet. Through the glass walls of the medical unit, he could see Sarah Chen sleeping. Machines monitored her vital signs. All of them showed something impossible. She was healing. Darwin belonged to the Salothian species. His people could regrow lost limbs. They could survive terrible injuries. But even they needed weeks to heal from wounds like Sarah's. This human woman had been crushed, burned, and frozen. Her bones had fractured. Her organs had been damaged. Yet after only 12 hours, her body was repairing itself. How? Darwin said to himself. He looked at the data on his screen. The Galactic Council had given him one job: find out what humans were made of. Find out how Sarah Chen survived the Celestium 9 test. Darwin had studied hundreds of species. He knew the biology of warriors who could survive in space. He knew about creatures with armor thicker than ship hulls. But humans? According to every database, humans were weak. He pulled up Sarah's file. The screen showed her life history. She had been born on Earth, humanity's home world. She grew up in a place called San Francisco. She studied engineering and learned to fly ships. At 25, she became a cargo hauler captain. The file showed images of the Epsilon Tertius mining colonies. Darwin's stomach turned as he saw what the Chromath Empire had done there. Children being taken away, workers collapsing from exhaustion, bodies left in the streets. Sarah Chen had seen this, and she decided to act. The files showed her methods. She was clever. She made fake shipping manifests. She hid people in cargo containers. She bribed guards and hacked security systems. For 2 years, she moved like a ghost through Chromath space, freeing people the Empire had enslaved. Darwin felt respect growing in his chest. This was not just survival, this was courage. He turned back to his biological scans. Something was wrong with his instruments, or something was right, and he did not understand it yet. Human bodies were simple compared to most galactic species. They had no natural weapons, no poison glands, no armored plates. Their bones were calcium-based, fragile things. Their skin was soft. They needed oxygen to breathe, and too much or too little would kill them. So how did Sarah Chen survive? Darwin looked at the other species files for comparison. The Chromath had triple redundant organs. If one heart failed, 2 more kept working. The Vexnor were silicon-based. Their bodies were like living crystals, nearly impossible to break. The Threkal were hive minds. Kill one body, and the consciousness moved to another. Humans had none of these advantages. Darwin pulled up Earth's planetary data. What he saw made him go still. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. He read the designation twice to be sure. Only 47 planets in the known galaxy were Class 12. These were worlds where life struggled constantly just to exist, worlds where everything was trying to kill everything else, and Earth was one of them. Darwin began reading. His eyes grew wider with each fact. Earth's surface was broken into massive plates that moved and crashed into each other. This caused earthquakes that could destroy cities, volcanoes that could block out the sun, mountains that rose up and then eroded away. Earth's atmosphere was 21% oxygen. This made fire possible. Everything on Earth could burn. The planet's weather created hurricanes that could flatten forests, tornadoes that threw houses into the air, floods that drowned entire valleys. Earth's gravity was 1.4 times galactic standard. Humans grew up being pulled down by a force that would tire most species. But that was not all. Earth was covered with life. Millions of species competed for survival. Bacteria that could kill with a touch. Viruses that evolved faster than medicine could stop them. Predators with claws and teeth and venom. Plants that were poisonous. Insects that spread disease. Humans evolved on this world. They survived on this world. Darwin sat back in his water suit. He was beginning to understand. He pulled up human evolutionary history. For millions of years, humans were prey animals. Larger creatures hunted them. So humans learned to run. Not fast, but far. They could chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. This was called persistence hunting. Humans developed sweat glands. They could cool their bodies in heat that would kill most species. They could run under a hot sun while their prey died of heat stroke. Humans' immune systems were like tiny wars happening inside their bodies every moment. Millions of white blood cells fought against millions of invading organisms. Human bodies were battlefields, and their minds. Darwin looked at the brain scans taken during the Celestium-9 test. Sarah Chen had been conscious the entire time. While her body was being destroyed, her brain was still working, still thinking, still trying to survive. "You do not give up," Darwin whispered. "Your species does not know how to give up." A sound made him turn. Sarah Chen was waking up. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked around the medical unit, confused at first. Then her gaze found Darwin floating in his water suit. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was rough from screaming. "Medical containment," Darwin said. "You are safe. You are healing." Sarah tried to sit up. Machines beeped warnings. She ignored them and forced herself upright. Darwin saw pain cross her face, but she did not lie back down. "The Celestium-9, she said. "I broke it?" "You did not break it," Darwin said. "You survived it. The metal broke because it could not withstand the forces. But somehow you did." Sarah looked at her hands. They were wrapped in medical bandages. "I don't feel very strong." "That is the question every commander is asking," Darwin said. "What are you made of?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "The same things you are. Carbon, water, minerals, nothing special." "Then how?" Darwin moved closer to the containment field. "How did you survive forces that would destroy a Chromath battle form, that would shatter a Vexnor crystal warrior?" Sarah looked at him. Her eyes were dark and tired. "Because I had to." "That is not an answer." "Yes, it is," Sarah said. "I had people counting on me. The people I freed from the colonies. They're still out there, still fighting to stay free. I couldn't die in that sphere. Not yet. Not while they still needed someone to fight for them." Darwin felt something shift in his understanding. This was not about biology. Not completely. "You survived through will?" he asked. "Through determination?" "I survived because giving up wasn't an option," Sarah said. She leaned back against the medical bed, exhausted. "That's what humans do. We get knocked down, we get hurt, and we stand back up. It's not always pretty, it's not always easy, but we do it." Darwin thought about Earth, about the death world that created humanity, about 4 billion years of evolution, of life fighting to survive against a planet that was constantly trying to kill it. "I need to tell the Council," he said. "Tell them what?" "That they do not understand humans. None of us do. We thought you were weak because you have no armor, no claws, no redundant organs. But we were looking at the wrong things." Sarah smiled, though it clearly hurt. "What should you have been looking at?" "Your refusal to die," Darwin said. The Galactic Council chamber was shaped like a vast amphitheater. Representatives from 63 species sat in curved rows that rose up toward a domed ceiling. At the center stood Darwin in his water suit, preparing to present his findings. Commander Vexthal sat in the Chromath section, his armor plates gleaming. He had been demoted after the Celestium 9 incident, but the Council still wanted his testimony. Around him, other commanders whispered and pointed at the screens showing data about Earth. "Begin your report," the Council chair said. She was a Vexnor, her crystalline body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Darwin touched his controls. Above him, a hologram of Earth appeared. Blue oceans, green and brown land masses, white clouds swirling in patterns. "This is Earth," Darwin said. "Homeworld of humanity. It appears peaceful from space, but it is one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy." The hologram zoomed in. It showed a massive storm system over an ocean, winds that could tear buildings apart, waves as tall as mountains. "Earth is classified as Class 12 Death World," Darwin continued. "Only 47 such worlds exist. None of the others have produced sapient life. Earth is unique." He changed the image. Now it showed Earth's tectonic plates. "The planet's surface is broken into pieces that constantly move. When they collide, the ground shakes, mountains rise, volcanoes erupt, entire cities can be destroyed in moments." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Many species came from stable worlds where the ground never moved. "The atmosphere is 21% oxygen," Darwin said. "This makes fire spread rapidly. Lightning strikes cause wildfires that burn for months. Everything on Earth lives with the constant threat of burning." He showed images of Earth's weather: tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts. The temperature ranges from -89 degrees to 57 degrees Celsius in natural conditions. Most species could not survive at either extreme. Humans can endure both. The next image made several council members shift uncomfortably. It showed Earth's predators: large cats with teeth and claws, pack hunters that work together, venomous snakes, spiders, sharks in the oceans. Humans evolved alongside these predators, Darwin said. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most venomous, so they developed different advantages. He showed a human running across a desert landscape. The human ran for hours. The animal being chased eventually collapsed from exhaustion and heat. Humans can run for days without stopping. They sweat to cool themselves. They can operate in heat that would kill most galactic species. This is called persistence hunting. They exhaust their prey. But they are still weak, Commander Vexthal interrupted. I have fought human soldiers. They fall easily. In direct combat, yes, Darwin agreed. But survival is not about winning every fight. It is about refusing to lose the war. He changed the image again. This time it showed microscopic organisms, bacteria, viruses. Earth is covered with diseases, millions of different pathogens. The human immune system fights constantly. Every moment of every day, humans are at war with invisible enemies inside their own bodies. Their bodies know how to fight. It is built into every cell. The hologram shifted to show human brain scans. Darwin highlighted sections that glowed with activity. This is Sarah Chen's brain during the Celestium-9 test. Notice the activity patterns. She was conscious while being crushed. Her frontal cortex showed problem-solving activity. Her motor cortex was sending signals to muscles, trying to find positions that would reduce pressure. She was fighting back against forces that should have knocked her unconscious instantly. This proves nothing, Vexthal said, standing up. One human survived one test. She was lucky. It was not luck, Darwin said. His voice was firm now. It was 4 billion years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill everything on it. Humans are not strong because they win. They are strong because they refuse to stay down. The council chair raised a hand for silence. Continue, xenobiologist Darwin. Darwin took a breath. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. They believe hardship builds resilience, and their entire evolutionary history proves this. Ice ages, plagues, predators, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts. Each disaster killed most life on Earth. But some survived, and those survivors became the ancestors of modern humans. He showed images of human history, ancient humans living in caves, building fires, creating tools, working together in groups. Humans are social creatures. They evolved to cooperate, to protect each other, to share resources. This is their greatest weapon, not claws or armor, not individual strength, but the fact that they take care of their own. A new voice spoke up. It came from the human section of the chamber. Ambassador James Rodriguez stood. He was older than Sarah Chen, with gray in his hair. May I add to this report? Rodriguez asked. The council chair nodded. Rodriguez stepped down to the center floor. He stood next to Darwin's water suit. Everything the xenobiologist says is true, Rodriguez said. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived not because we were the strongest, but because we were too stubborn to die. He touched his own control panel. Images appeared of human achievements. Cities that touched the sky, machines that could fly, ships that could travel between stars. For most of our history, the average human lived only 35 years. Disease, starvation, predators, and each other killed us young. So we learned to make every moment count. We learned to build things that would last after we were gone. He showed an image of a massive explosion, a mushroom cloud rising into the sky. We split the atom to end a war. We launched ourselves into space on towers of controlled explosions. We looked at the impossible and asked, what if we tried anyway? Rodriguez turned to face the Chromath section. Commander Vexthal, you asked what Sarah Chen is made of. I'll tell you. She's made of the same determination that got our ancestors through the ice ages. The same stubbornness that made us stand up after every disaster. The same refusal to give up that is coded into our DNA. Pretty words, Vexthal said. But words will not stop warships. Neither will Celestium 9, Rodriguez replied. You already learned that. The chamber erupted in voices. Some species argued that humans should be contained. Others said they should be allies. The Chromath delegation demanded that Sarah Chen be executed immediately. Then the alarms started. Red lights flashed throughout the chamber. Security officers rushed to their stations. On the main screen, a tactical display appeared. It showed ships entering the system. Dozens of them. Hundreds. What is that? The council chair demanded. A security officer's voice came over the speakers. Unknown fleet approaching Convergence Arena. They're broadcasting on all channels. The message says, "We're here for Captain Chen." The tactical display zoomed in on the ships. They were not warships. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, colony transports, civilian ships that had been modified with whatever weapons their crews could mount. How many? Vexthal asked, standing. 217 ships, the officer replied, and more arriving every minute. Ambassador Rodriguez smiled. It was not a happy smile. You wanted to know about humans, Commander. Now you're going to learn. We don't leave our people behind. On the screen, the ragtag human fleet moved toward the Convergence Arena. They were outgunned, outmatched. By every logical calculation, they should have run away. But they came anyway. In the medical wing, Sarah Chen woke to the sound of alarms. Through her containment field, she could see emergency lights flashing. She pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the pain. They came, she whispered. They actually came. Outside, in the cold of space, the battle was about to begin. The first missile strike hit the Convergence Arena's outer shields. Alarms screamed through every corridor. The station shuddered as the Council's defense fleet engaged the human ships. Sarah Chen moved through the chaos with determination. She had escaped her medical containment by shorting out the field generator. Her body still hurt from the Celestium 9 test, but she pushed the pain aside. People had come to rescue her. She would not let them die for nothing. Two Chromath soldiers rounded a corner ahead. They saw Sarah and raised their weapons. She was unarmed, wearing only a medical gown. But she did not stop running. The corridor had maintenance panels on the walls. Sarah grabbed one and yanked it open as she passed. Sparks flew. The lights flickered. In that moment of darkness, she dropped low and swept the legs out from under the first soldier. He fell with a crash of armor. The second soldier fired. The energy bolt passed over Sarah's head. She grabbed a piece of broken panel and threw it at the soldier's face. It hit his eye shield. He stumbled back, temporarily blinded. Sarah ran past them both and kept going. She needed to reach the hangar bays. That was where rescue ships would try to dock. Outside the station, the battle was not going well for the humans. The Council's defense fleet had real warships with real weapons. The human fleet had cargo haulers with mining lasers and improvised missiles. But the humans fought like nothing the Council had ever seen. A human freight hauler took critical damage. Its engines died. Its shields failed. Instead of retreating, the ship turned and used its last bit of momentum to ram a Council destroyer. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. A mining vessel's weapons were destroyed. So the crew used their plasma cutters instead, slicing into enemy hulls at close range. When their ship was disabled, they put on spacesuits and boarded the damaged Council ship through the breach. In the command center, military leaders from across the galaxy watched in horror. This was not how space combat worked. When you lost, you retreated. You surrendered. You did not turn your dying ship into a weapon. They're insane, a Threkel commander said. His hive mind found the human behavior incomprehensible. No, Darwin said quietly. He stood in the command center in his water suit, watching the screens. They're committed. There's a difference. On the communications channel, human voices crackled through. This is the cargo ship, remember Epsilon. We're going down, but we're taking them with us. Mining vessel Earth's bounty here. Our hull is breached, but we're not done yet. Tell Captain Chen we're coming. Colony transport New Hope to all ships. We didn't run when the Chromath came for our families. We're not running now. Each message was a reminder. These were not soldiers. They were merchants, miners, and colonists. People who should have been hauling cargo or drilling asteroids. But Sarah Chen had saved them once. Now they came to save her. Inside the station, Sarah reached a junction. Her path was blocked by debris from an explosion. She looked around for another route and saw a maintenance shaft. Without hesitation, she climbed inside. The shaft was narrow and dark. Sarah pulled herself forward with her arms, ignoring the pain in her ribs. She could hear fighting in other parts of the station. The battle was spreading. She thought about the people who had come for her. She had freed 3 colonies, maybe 5,000 people total, but clearly her message had spread. These ships represented dozens of colonies, maybe more. They had heard what she did. They chose to follow her example. "Don't die for me," she whispered as she crawled. "Please don't die for me." Behind her, Commander Vexthal led a squad of elite Chromath soldiers through the corridors. He had tracked Sarah's escape route. He knew where she was going. "The human will try to reach the hangar," he told his soldiers. "We will be there first." The Chromath were bred for war. Their armor could withstand direct weapon hits. Their strength could bend metal. 6 of them waited in the hangar bay, ready for Sarah to arrive. But Darwin was also in the hangar. He had followed them. "Commander," Darwin said from his water suit, "this is wrong." "Stay out of this, xenobiologist," Vexthal replied. "The human is a criminal. She will die today." "She freed slaves," Darwin said. "People your empire took from their homes. That's not a crime. That's justice." Vexthal turned to face Darwin. His 4 eyes narrowed. "Your people are weak. You do not understand power." "And your people are brittle," Darwin shot back. "You rule through fear. But fear makes you fragile. Look at what's happening. Those humans out there are not afraid of you. They came anyway. They will die anyway." "Maybe," Darwin admitted. "But they came. That's the difference between your people and them. You conquer. They inspire." A ventilation grate fell from the ceiling. Sarah Chen dropped down into the hangar bay, landing in a crouch. She was covered in dust and sweat. Blood ran from cuts on her arms. But she stood up and faced the Chromath soldiers. Vexthal raised his weapon. "End of the line, human." Sarah looked past him. Through the hangar's transparent shield, she could see the battle. Ships exploding, energy weapons firing. And in the middle of it all, a small human shuttle fighting its way toward the station. "They came for me," Sarah said. Her voice was filled with wonder. "They came to die," Vexthal corrected. "No," Sarah said. "They came because they believe in something bigger than fear. They came because that's what humans do. We don't leave each other behind." She looked at Vexthal. Despite the weapons pointed at her, she stood straight. "You asked what I'm made of," she said. "I'm made of every person who refused to give up when you crushed them. I'm made of every parent who fought to protect their children. I'm made of every slave who dreamed of freedom. That's stronger than any metal you can forge." Vexthal's finger moved toward the trigger. Darwin pushed between them. His water suit moved with surprising speed. "No," he said firmly. "Move, xenobiologist." "I won't." Darwin looked at Vexthal. "If you kill her, you prove her right. She survives because her people give her strength. You rule through fear. She leads through hope. That's why you'll lose." "I don't need to rule," Vexthal said. "I just need to kill her." An explosion rocked the hangar. The transparent shield cracked. Through it, the human shuttle broke through, firing at the station's defenses. It was damaged and smoking, but it came anyway. The shuttle crashed through the weakened shield. Atmosphere rushed out into space. Emergency bulkheads slammed down. The hangar became chaos. In the confusion, Sarah ran. The Chromath soldiers fired, but their shots went wide. Darwin had released a burst of steam from his suit, filling the air with hot mist. Sarah reached the shuttle as its doors opened. Hands reached out to pull her inside. She recognized faces, people she had saved, people she thought were safe and far away. "We couldn't leave you," a woman said. Tears ran down her face. "You saved us. Now we save you." The shuttle's engines roared. It lifted off the hangar floor, turning toward the broken shield. Vexthal ran forward, firing his weapon. The shots hit the shuttle's hull, but the craft kept going. It burst out into space, joining the battle. Vexthal stood in the ruined hangar watching the shuttle escape. Around him, his empire was losing control. The human ships kept coming. Even when destroyed, their debris caused damage. The Council fleet was being overwhelmed not by superior force, but by sheer refusal to quit. "What are they made of?" Vexthal asked again. Darwin stood beside him, safe behind an emergency barrier. "Something you can't break," he said. "Hope." 3 months had passed since the Battle of Convergence Arena. The station looked different now. Where weapons had been tested, gardens grew. Where prisoners had been held, conference rooms welcomed diplomats. The Galactic Council had transformed the arena into something new, a symbol of peace instead of war. Sarah Chen stood in one of those conference rooms, looking at reports on a datapad. She wore formal clothes now instead of prison gray. Her title had changed too. She was no longer captain or prisoner. Now she was Ambassador Sarah Chen, representative for human colonial affairs. The door opened. Darwin floated in, his water suit humming softly. He had become an unlikely friend during these months. His scientific curiosity had turned into genuine respect. "The Salathian delegation wants to meet with you," Darwin said. "They're interested in human medical techniques, specifically trauma recovery and psychological resilience." Sarah smiled. "Tell them I'm happy to share. We've had a lot of practice with both." Darwin moved to the window. Outside, ships from different species docked at the station. Not warships anymore. Trade vessels, diplomatic transports. The galaxy was changing. "The Chromath Empire is collapsing," Darwin said. "They're losing colony after colony. The slave systems are declaring independence." "Good," Sarah said. She did not feel joy at their suffering, but she felt satisfaction at justice being done. "Commander Vexthal requested a meeting with you." Sarah looked up from her datapad. "He wants to see me?" "He's been demoted. His empire is crumbling. I think he wants to understand what happened." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Send him in." Darwin left. A few minutes later, Vexthal entered the conference room. He looked different. His armor was scarred and dented. His 4 eyes seemed tired. He moved like someone carrying a great weight. "Ambassador Chen," he said formally. "Commander," she replied. "Or is it something else now?" "Just Vexthal," he said. "I have no command anymore." They stood across from each other. The last time they had been this close, he had been trying to kill her. Now he seemed lost. "Why did you want to see me?" Sarah asked. Vexthal was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "I need to know. What are you made of?" Sarah had heard this question many times now. Every species asked, every commander, every scientist. They all wanted to understand how a human survived the Celestium 9 test. "Sit down," she said. They sat at the conference table. Sarah ordered drinks from the station's food synthesizer. She gave Vexthal something from his home world. She took coffee for herself, a human beverage. "You're asking the wrong question," Sarah said. "It's not about what I'm made of. Physically, I'm nothing special. Carbon, water, trace minerals, same as most carbon-based life." "Then how did you survive?" Because I had to, Sarah said simply. Because people needed me to, because giving up wasn't an option. Vexthal shook his head. That's not a scientific answer. Maybe not, but it's the truth. Sarah took a sip of her coffee. Your empire built its power on fear. You conquered worlds. You took slaves. You used strength to dominate the weak. That is how the galaxy works, Vexthal said. No, Sarah corrected. That's how your empire worked, and look where it got you. The moment people stopped being afraid, your power crumbled. She leaned forward. Humans don't survive because we're strong. We survive because we take care of each other. When I was in that sphere, being crushed and burned, I wasn't thinking about myself. I was thinking about the people I'd freed, the families I'd reunited, the children who got to grow up free. That gave me strength no metal can match. Vexthal looked at his drink. Fear makes you brittle, he said, remembering Darwin's words. Yes, hope makes you flexible, and flexibility is how you survive pressure. Sarah stood and walked to the window. You wanted to know what broke the Celestium-9? I'll tell you. The metal was built to resist external force, but I was pushing back from the inside. Every cell in my body was fighting, not because I'm physically superior, but because I refused to accept that the metal would win. She turned back to Vexthal. Darwin figured it out. My body was vibrating at a specific frequency, not consciously, just fighting to survive. That vibration matched the resonance frequency of Celestium-9. I didn't break the metal through strength, I broke it through sheer stubborn refusal to die. Vexthal stood. Your species is dangerous. Yes, Sarah agreed. But not because we want to conquer. We're dangerous because we don't stay down. You can knock us down, you can hurt us, but we keep getting back up, and eventually, that wears down even the strongest opposition. What happens now? Vexthal asked. To the galaxy? Sarah looked out at the ships docking. We're forming an alliance, the Coalition of Free Systems. It includes former Chromath colonies, the Salathians, and several smaller species, and humans, of course. An alliance against my people? No, Sarah said firmly. An alliance for freedom. We won't conquer the Chromath Empire. We'll just make sure they can't conquer anyone else. Your people can join us if they choose peace, or they can continue alone if they choose war. Vexthal moved toward the door. He stopped and looked back. I watched you stand in that debris field, covered in blood, barely alive, but standing. I was afraid then. I'm still afraid now. Don't be afraid of us, Sarah said. Be inspired by us. Humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Your empire is fractured, but fractures can heal. You can rebuild. You just need to build on hope instead of fear. Vexthal left without another word. Darwin returned a few minutes later. How did it go? He's lost, Sarah said. His entire worldview just shattered like Celestium-9. Will he adapt? Maybe. Humans fracture and heal all the time. Maybe his people can learn to do the same. Darwin pulled up a hologram. It showed a new material, its molecular structures spinning in the air. Speaking of fracturing, I want to show you something. Scientists from 17 species worked together to create this. It's a new alloy. Sarah studied the structure. It was beautiful, complex. What makes it special? It learns, Darwin said with excitement. When stress is applied, it records the pattern. Then it reinforces those areas. It can take damage and repair itself. It adapts. You made metal that evolves? We were inspired by humans, Darwin said. By you, specifically. We realized that being unbreakable isn't actually the strongest state. Being able to break and heal is stronger. Being able to learn from damage is stronger. He smiled, which looked strange on his amphibious face. We're calling it Chen's alloy, in your honor. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. I don't deserve that. Yes, you do. You taught the galaxy something important. Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about what you do after you fracture. Later that day, there was a ceremony. The fragments of the Celestium-9 sphere had been mounted on a memorial wall. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to see it. Sarah stood before the broken metal pieces. Someone had engraved words below them. The strongest materials can break, the strongest spirits adapt. She placed her hand on the fractured Celestium-9. It was cold under her fingers. She could see where the cracks had spread from the center outward, from where her body had been. Ambassador Rodriguez stood beside her. They want you to give a speech tomorrow about Earth joining the Security Coalition. Sarah nodded. What should I say? Tell them the truth, that humans have been fracturing and healing for 4 billion years, that we're pretty good at it by now. Sarah looked at the assembled representatives. So many different species, so many different worlds, all of them learning to work together instead of fight. We don't have the strongest armor, she said quietly. We don't have the best weapons. We don't even have the longest lives. But we have something that can't be taken away. We have each other, and we don't leave each other behind. Rodriguez smiled. That's what you should say tomorrow. That night, Sarah stood alone in her quarters, looking at Earth through the window. Her home world was millions of miles away, but she could imagine it. The blue oceans, the green forests, the cities full of people living their lives. Earth had tried to kill humanity for so long. Ice ages, plagues, predators, disasters. But humans survived. Not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most stubborn. Sarah thought about all the people throughout human history who had refused to give up, who had fought against impossible odds, who had protected their families and communities. She was just one more in a long line. The Celestium-9 had been called unbreakable, but it broke. Sarah Chen had been called weak, but she survived. The galaxy had thought humans were fragile. But they were wrong. Humans weren't fragile. They were flexible. They bent instead of breaking. And when they did break, they healed stronger than before. That was the alloy that couldn't be defeated. Not metal, not armor, but the human spirit, tempered by 4 billion years on a death world, refusing to accept defeat. Sarah pressed her hand against the window, as if she could touch Earth from here. We're doing okay out here, she whispered. Tell everyone we're doing okay. And in her mind, she could hear her grandfather's voice from long ago. Humans don't have armor, Sarah. We don't have claws or poison or telepathy. What we have is each other, and the knowledge that giving up is the only real defeat. She would never give up. None of them would. That was what made them human. That was what made them strong.